Deja Vu, where we're flashing back over 17 years of programming on the school channel. I'm your host and resident old guy, Gary Kramer, and with me are Amy Marsh.
Hi.
And Diane Stowe.
Hello.
And on this week's show, we're going to flash back to 1992-93 for one of the most bizarre and elaborate productions that we've ever been involved in, Rocky and Clay. Now, Rocky and Clay was I don't know what to call it. It's a multimedia event that we produced for Red Ribbon Week and included a video. There were also curriculum materials that were distributed to the elementary schools that they used in class. There was a trading card set. The entire production was turned into a comic that ran in the Norman transcript, and the characters from Rocky and Clay visited the schools during Red Ribbon Week in costume and put on a little skit that talks about making good and bad decisions. So the focus of the video was Red Ribbon Week, but then we used it as part of the Norman campaign for the rest of the year. And it was a multimedia campaign. There's even radio spots about Rocky and Clay. Now, it was an elaborate production that involved all of the multimedia Cablevision ringmasters, as you might expect with a Red Ribbon Week production. It also involved a couple of the district spokespeople, of which the two of you are now carrying that torch, and it involved students from the media productions classes at Norman High. So just about everything that we worked with came together in the production Rocky and Clay. And then we supported it with other video productions. So we're going to start the show with one of those supporting video productions that was part of one of the shows that the Media 2 students did for the school channel in 1992-93.
Kim Carnevale and Jeremy Schroeder, media students, as well as characters on Rocky and Clay, interview characters Beatrix and Webster, who ironically are played by Kim and Jeremy themselves. Note the special effects used in this scene. I'm sorry.
The video Rocky and Clay made its debut on Homeroom, a show that precedes us on the school channel. I hope you had a chance to see it because our next guests were stars in that production. Here are Kim and Jeremy with more.
Thanks, Mark. This is Red Ribbon Week, and as a part of the district's observation, Video Resources Studio is premiering a special video entitled Rocky and Clay. This video is being shown in 4th and 5th grade classrooms and is designed to help promote responsible decision-making in our students.
Rocky and Clay is being shown on the school school channel this week as part of the homeroom program, which you can see each evening at 6 and 9 o'clock. Rocky and Clay features all three multimedia ringmasters, Tim Clay, Andrea Springer, and Brad Fuller.
It also features our guests today, Beatrix and Webster. Thank you for joining us in the forum today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Beatrix, can you tell us who else is in the video?
Well, in addition to Webster and me, there's our good friend Viper. There's also two title characters, Rocky and Clay.
We're the stars of the video. I understand there are also some superheroes in the video. Norman and his two new assistants, Enable and Enrich. Yeah, I guess they're in it. I don't really know. They have small parts, if you know what I mean. They're wimpy guys, like you, Jeremy. Wimpy?
Tell us about the parts you both play. Beatrix, what is it you're supposed to represent?
I represent things that are beautiful.
Isn't
and
it
exciting.
true that you represent things that are bad for us? Don't you stand for seductive aspects of evil that might tempt one to make a bad choice?
Seductive? Me? Do you think I'm seductive, Jeremy?
Well,
like I said before, I represent excitement, adventure, the unknown.
Then why are there bees all over your costume? Doesn't that mean if we get too close to you, we're likely to get stung?
No, it means I'm as sweet as honey. Want a little taste, Jeremy?
well,
Webster, tell us about your costume. What do you represent?
the spider's the strongest and most cunning of all insects. I represent strength.
Isn't it true, Webster, that you represent deceit and entrapment? Don't you represent all the ways that people get lured or trapped into making a bad decision?
Do I look like a bad decision? In that costume, you look like a bad dream. I look like your dream, wimp. I've seen that little football costume you wear around on Friday night. At least they don't have to pad me up. Boy, you.
Guys, sit down. We're not here to fight. Take a chill pill, Jeremy. Yes, relax, Jeremy. I have some real chill pills with me if you want one. It'll make you feel better.
Yeah, relax, man. We're here to help. If you want to look like me, it just takes a few simple injections and some time in the gym. I spend plenty of time in the gym. But Jeremy, old pal, my way's a lot easier and gets better results. Just look at the difference between us.
Yeah, Jeremy. You could look a lot better with less effort. That would give us more time to party. I'd love to party with you.
Well,
Jeremy, don't you see what they're trying to do to you? This is exactly what they do in the video. They're working on you to get you to make a bad choice. Beatrix is flattering you, and Webster is trying to pick a fight. They're to get you to do what they want.
butt out, Kim. He doesn't need you to tell him what's going on around here. He's a big guy. He can make his own decisions. You're right, Webster.
Jeremy.
And you're right, too, Kim. I am big enough to make my own decisions. And I'm deciding to stay away from these two.
Jeremy.
You almost had me convinced that I need drugs to change my feelings and steroids to change my body, but you're wrong. We have to watch out for you, too. You're good at being bad.
Well, thanks for the compliment, I guess. If you ever change your mind, you know where to find us.
Well, thank you, Beatrix and Webster, for being our guests on the show today.
Yeah.
Be watching for Beatrix and Webster along with Norman, Rocky, and Clay.
Enable, Enrich, and the 3 multimedia ringmasters in the Rocky and Clay video being shown all this week on Homeroom on the School Channel.
You can also read the story of Rocky and Clay in the Norman comic strip Saturday morning in the Norman transcript. And now back to Mark as Forum continues.
That was Kim Carnevale and Jeremy Schroeder interviewing themselves as Beatrix and Webster, 2 of the evil characters from the Rocky and Clay video. And they kind of set up what was going on. It's kind of an allegorical, classic conflict between good and evil as they compete for the souls and the decision-making skills of the title characters, Rocky and Clay. Now, Beatrix and Webster were part of the N sect. That also included Viper, and then Rocky and Clay were the title characters, and then there were the N-Power Men, which included Norman and N-Able and N-Rich. So there was a whole bunch of superheroes who represented good aspects and good decision-making as they battled the bad influences of the N-Sect over Rocky and Clay. Now, the multimedia Cablevision ringmasters narrated the story of Rocky and Clay, and it featured Tim Clay and Andrea Springer as prom dates who are discussing Rocky and Clay and what happened to them, kind of a flashback video. And then the singers were the district spokespeople and one of the other ringmasters from that year. So now, let's take a look and see what all the fuss was about.
Rocky and Clay featured the 1990 to 1993 ringmasters, 2 district spokespersons, and Norman. These characters' good repute battle against the evil insect characters Viper, Webster, and Beatrix. The classic fight between good and evil inspires us to make the right decisions over the souls of title characters Rocky and Clay.
When I was your size and still in school, I knew a couple of guys I thought were really cool. They were always together, they were friends forever. Rocky and Clay.
Rocky and Clay.
You know, growing up isn't easy, but I guess we both know that. We've both done it. I guess we're still doing it today. But, you know, there's people that seem to grow up really early, and then there are those that never seem to grow up at all.
I know. I think it really has a lot to do with your friends. I mean, do you remember what it was like when we were growing up?
Yeah.
I mean, you remember all of our friends? Like Rocky and Clay. You know, Rocky and Clay did everything together.
They played together,
They worked together.
studied, ate, traveled, fought, and grew.
Together.
But it seems like most of the time, though, they just kind of hung out.
Together.
I guess they were inseparable.
What one could do,
The other would try.
and when one was blue,
The other would cry.
they were just like brothers, looking out for each other. Rocky and Clay.
Rocky and Clay.
Rocky and Clay,
Best friends.
always together.
Well, always apart.
What do you mean, always apart?
Well, I mean, think about it. No matter how close two people are, they are still two people. I mean, they may think as a team, they may even act as a team, but they're still two separate individuals.
Although the brother act was all they never know, they had to face the fact that each was on his own. The lesson was taught, but was it caught by Rocky and Clay?
Rocky and Clay.
That's it. I mean, that's all. Just Rocky for Rocky.
Just Clay for Clay.
Yeah, just me for me, just you for you. I mean, other people may influence us. Other people may be part of our lives. But what we really do with our lives, well, that's up to us.
I think it's called taking responsibility for ourselves.
Yeah, it's growing up. Like we said before, growing up certainly isn't easy.
It had always been easy to know what to do.
Obey the rules and do what others told them to.
But as they grew, there was something new for Rocky and Clay.
Rocky and Clay.
You know, suddenly Rocky and Clay realized they had their own choices to make.
And making choices can be difficult, especially if someone else has been doing it for you.
It's so confusing. Sometimes the bad choices seem so good.
I know, and sometimes the good choices seem bad.
It'd be a lot easier if we could just see our choices.
Yeah. Imagine what the bad choices would look like.
One day some evil forces that were up to no good, they started making courses through the neighborhood with scented voices and tempting choices for Rocky and Clay.
Rocky and Clay.
You know, bad choices that seem good are called temptations.
And some temptations seem as sweet as honey.
Sometimes we get tangled up in them.
And sometimes they attack.
Rocky
Don't roll over.
and Clay.
Don't you bend.
You better think about it, think of where you might end with the steps you're taking and choices you're making. Rocky and Clay.
Rocky and Clay.
So what do you suppose the good choices must look like?
Well, what do you think it takes to make the right choice?
Well, it takes knowledge,
takes action.
Right. Takes experience, I suppose.
These three things give you the power to make the right choice.
Right. Empowerment.
And
Power.
Rocky
Don't roll over,
and Clay.
don't you bend.
You better think about it, think of where you might end with the steps you're taking and choices you're making for Rocky and Clay.
Rocky and Clay.
So, what happens after we make a choice?
Well, that's the consequence.
And every choice brings with it a consequence,
Right. Some are good.
and I guess some are bad.
But what do you suppose consequences must look like?
That day the boys divided, went their separate ways.
Bye-bye.
For Rocky had decided to be different from Clay. The paths they took changed the look of Rocky and Clay.
Rocky and Clay.
Well, that was pretty obvious. I mean, bad choices lead to bad consequences.
You know, I think the problem is we can't really see our choices. They aren't really insect people running around or superheroes trying to help us recognize the right and wrong things to do. I don't think the consequences are quite so dramatic either. If you make the wrong decision, you won't instantly turn to dust, or if you make the right decision, you won't have instant muscles either.
But there are lessons to be learned from the story of Rocky and Clay. I mean, these things are true. We must each take responsibility for ourselves.
Yeah, and I don't think it really matters how close your friends are, how strict your parents are, how many rules you have to follow at school. The only one that's really in control of your life is you.
You know, sometimes the bad choices seem good.
Yeah, I think we have to watch out for things that sound too good or too irresistible to be true, because they usually are.
And sometimes the good choices are harder to make.
Making a good choice takes three things: knowledge that comes from education, and reason that comes from experience, and action that just comes from you. And I think you have to work at that one, though.
Bad choices can and do lead to bad consequences.
You know, bad choices make you feel bad inside. I think they are bad for you. But I think all bad choices take something from you, leave you with less than you might have been.
Right. But good choices do lead to good consequences.
Yeah. Most good choices make you feel good inside. And they are good for you, I guess. I think anytime you try to make the right choice, it makes you a better, a stronger person.
Right. You really do become a super student of the Norman Public Schools.
We hope that you've been listening and learning, my friend. You better think about it, think of where you might end, of steps you're taking and choices you're making, like Rocky and Clay.
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 Well, there it was, Rocky and Clay from 1992-93. Kind of a morality play, I guess you could say, an allegory about making decisions. Did you learn something?
I did learn something.
Did you learn something?
I did.
We learned that consequences come from those decisions. We learned that some temptations can be better than or easier than the right decision. Sometimes the right decisions seem wrong and the wrong decisions seem right. It's complicated. It's tough growing up. I think that was one of the messages included in Rocky and Clay. Now, those kids worked a long time on that. Red Ribbon Week, as you know, comes early in the year, so the entire video had to be written, shot, and rehearsed to get ready for Red Ribbon Week, so there was some work that they did even in the summer. Now, Clay Spear was Clay, and he's just finishing his degree in education. In fact, he'll be practice teaching next semester, and hopefully we'll welcome him as a colleague in the profession of education. His mom is a teacher here at Norman High School. Mark Savage was Rocky, and the whole video came about because of his right arm. He had the most incredible right arm. He had this huge muscle in his right arm, so we built this whole elaborate video around that. Mark went on to be a member of the Marines. In fact, he's in the Marines right now. Both he and Clay married their high school sweethearts, and so they're making good, responsible decisions with their lives. Another one of the characters, Robert Robinson, who was unable, is also married, and in fact, he's already started his family, and I see him from time to time. Aaron Dunn and Amber Poitras were the backup singers, and they were district spokespeople that year. Erin is studying cello. In fact, she's a cello performance major. She's been performing around town. She just did a thing at the First Christian Church, and you have lots of opportunity to see Erin with her performances at OU and around town. I think she's on her way to Texas to study cello some more. So the people in that video have had time to get through college and start their lives and get on with their lives, and they have been making some responsible decisions. I see Kim Carnevale from time to time. She still stops by to say hi, and still a delightful person to know and have around. And I hear Jeremy Schroeder's still in town, and he's still huge, big as ever. So Jeremy, if you're out there, stop by and say hi. So that was the video Rocky and Clay. As I mentioned, we had worksheets that we sent to the 4th and 5th grade for them to deal with. It was also a comic in the Norman transcript. There were trading cards that were distributed as part of the Rocky and Clay video. And then those characters went and visited elementary schools and middle schools, not only during Red Ribbon Week, but throughout the year. So Rocky and Clay and those characters were a theme for 1992-93 here on the school channel, and we used them as we repeated that theme. It was a motif in the Norman Super Student lists.
Let's see how the characters in Rocky and Clay are incorporated into the list of Norman's super students.
That was Mark Savage, who was Rocky, and Robert Robinson, who was in Abel, I think was his name, and they were featured on the Norman list from that week. We were trying to see if we recognized any of those names, and we figured out that those students who were in elementary school in 1992-93 would not be here yet, so we were looking for some sibling names. But you guys have been around since Norman's been around. Were you ever a Norman super student? Remember ever being a Norman? Were you?
Yeah, I was. I think I was when I was in elementary school or something.
Yeah, it had to be in elementary school.
Yeah,
so,
like 5th grade.
Well, good. You just barely made it, because Norman started as a campaign, I think, in 1988, which you would have been in elementary school then. When we first started, we sent out little certificates, and you're probably too old to have ever gotten a trading card, because those started with Rocky and Clay. So those were two of the Rocky and Clay characters who were part of Norman lists. Let's see how we incorporated some of the others. Those were good guys, but all of the Rocky and Clay characters were featured in Norman Super Student lists. That again was Jeremy Schroeder, who was Webster in the Rocky and Clay video, and he was featured in the Norman list. Norman that year was Claude Ubercolta. It's the only time that we've had a student who functioned as Norman. Usually high school students aren't that big, but boy, that year we had big kids on this campus. And Jeremy was another example of the size of some of the students we had on campus that year. In fact, that was the year that we won the state championship football title. And Jeremy was part of that team, so he's walking around with a state championship ring, I'm sure. Now you can watch Norman on the Good Company show. And Jeff Leffler is this year's Norman, and you can see Jeff work out at the Brookhaven Health Club, Brookhaven Village. Every year since Rocky and Clay, we have selected a new Norman to represent the champion of excellence for the Norman Public Schools and the elementary students. And we were talking, there are several of us here who have been in the paper, been saluted by Norman. You think from our point of view that it doesn't mean anything to people, but then you find out that those newspaper articles were clipped and the trading cards were put on the refrigerators, and the kids did feel good about being recognized by the champion of excellence for the good work that they did at school. So the Norman campaign continues. Rocky and Clay now is part of our archives. It was an elaborate Red Ribbon Week production that we did in 1992-93. Now be sure to join us next week on Deja Vu, because we're going to trace the origin and development of the All-City 5th Grade Choral Concert. Both of you sang in the All-City 5th Grade Choral Concerts, but it's been around for a little more than a decade, so we're going to go all the way back and listen to a discussion where it's planned, and then show you some highlights from All-City 5th Grade Choral Concerts over the years. So join us then on Deja Vu. Until then, for Amy Marsh, Diane Stowe, I'm Gary Kramer. Good night.
Good night.